All right. I'm Beth Barany.
And I'm Giggle Man.
Giggle man.
Also, I have a name, and that is Ezra Barany.
So we are working writers and also writing teachers, and we are here to support you to edit, publish, and market your science fiction and fantasy novel. That's what we're passionate about. Although what we're going to share with you today is for all kinds of fiction writers, in my opinion. So here's the big question for you. Are you committed to working regularly on your book? So this was a big deal for me. When I committed to my novel, when I committed to working on that first novel when I was 30 years old, I felt everything like shift inside of me. It was like all of a sudden, instead of wishing and wanting and hoping and yearning, I was actually sitting down, putting words on the page. And I said to myself, no matter how hard this is, no matter how long it takes, I am going to write this novel and I'm going to finish it. Because that's the only, I realized finally, that was the only way I would figure out how to write a novel, was by doing it. So that's why I think commitment is so important. And yeah, what do you think about commitment?
I've been committed to getting writing done for a long time.
Since you were a teenager.
Yeah. And really the only thing preventing me is just not starting. As soon as I start, I'm flowing.
Yeah. So we have things we could totally talk about how to get started. In fact, I have a ton of material on that, like my Overcome Writer's Block ebook. And would you say there was ever a time where you were not committed to working on I know you had creative projects that weren't just books, you had your music, but when it came to writing, was there ever a time where you're like, oh, I'm going to give it up, or you would forget about it?
I would say the only time I stopped being committed to the projects is if there were emergencies that would take over my mind to be able to concentrate. Other than that, no.
And then you always came back to your work.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. And I've gone through many stages of commitment, and I would say it's almost like every span of learning requires a certain commitment. And then I got to more confidence. I had that first book under my belt, and then I had the second, then I had the third. And then, yeah, I opened a business, and all of a sudden, all of that took over me. And months would go by before I realized, oh, I hadn't worked on my fiction. And I would be really sad and upset about that. Then I realized, oh, I need to find a way to put my commitment and my love of fiction closer and closer to the center of my workday so that it would become part of my workday. So I worked hard to integrate writing into my daily life because it is so important to me. But I also had lots of periods of forgetting and then remembering. And then also noticing that I would look around and see my fellow writers releasing way more books than me. And there I was, still on like number 3 in my series. And people around me had published 6 books already or whatever. Not to compare myself with them, but what I noticed is I wanted that level of output. And I realized I need to step up my commitment. Instead of writing once a week like I did for years, I need to write twice a week or 3 times a week. And so when I'm creating new material, I'm working 4 to 6 days a week. And I had to work to figure out how to make that happen. And it is a level of commitment. It's a level and daily in practice, which we're going to get to in a moment. So it's important, I think, to have a conscious commitment to your writing so that you do all the things to make sure it has a center place in your life, and it's on your calendar, and there's a place for it and a time for it, and so that you can make it happen.
Yeah. And just to note that if you do only once a week or once a month, but if you have some set time to do the writing, that is still commitment because you're still committed to writing. We're not belittling people who are not writing as much or whatever. The important part is doing it regularly.
And whatever that looks for you. I work with writers who write like these marathon sessions every 2 weeks or every week. I have other writers who are doing it regularly, but then they have to go for a work trip and then they stop and then they have to restart, and that's okay. Others who just dip in and out according to their life schedule. It can look all kinds of ways, and the way that works for you is what we want to support. So like your own ready to edit checklist, then be sure to check out the link in the description. And if you have thoughts about how it is that you arrange your commitment and how you're committed to working on your book, let us know. Plus any questions or comment. That's it for now.
Good night.
Good night. Good morning.